Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Christ consciousness. Well, let's talk about subtle energy physics. Now, this is at the core of all subtle energies that we think of. All of those things that everyone has studied that is out of the realm of kind of low-level caveman common physics that you'll pick up at illustrious institutes like Caltech and MIT. Now, this is a very crude form of science that we have today, as is most of it. And if anything is discovered that has any kind of potency, it's thrown in the trash post-haste because we don't want to solve any problems. And your scientists are behind this fraud against the world. It's really a crime against humanity. That's what it really is, because they're not allowing technologies that are known, easy, and inexpensive to get to the public, like hydrogen power, which you can make for pennies and we can use right now with the technology we have. You know, it's frightening that things are at these levels. So what's also frightening is understanding the level of what actual matter is and how it works. And these people have no idea, and they're certainly not going to assist with assisting the world. The problem with regular institutes like Caltech and MIT is they all tend to be basically on the leash of their money donors, the corporations that pay them, that want them to come up with answers that they want answers to, not and only that. One researcher left a particular project because that company was looking for something else. Well, you know, to an extent, I understand that. I mean, what are you going to do with information that is out of your field? Well, if you're smart, you do like Wrigley's chewing gum did, you know, juicy fruit, peppermint, etc. Well, they used to sell soap. And when everybody wanted, they used to give away gum with their soap. When everybody wanted the gum, they changed over to making gum and made millions from it. But you're not going to find that for most companies. So one of the problems we have is the fact that we need to fully understand that you're not going to get any answers there. Now, excuse me, I love to frame these things in a very particular way. My technology is science. There is a science to, quote, radionics, which is oftentimes has been disregarded by ignorant, buffoonish scientists who can't figure it out. Let's talk about Newton, Einstein. Let's talk about stuff that never worked that's 500 years ago. Well, this is the kind of stuff they do. And, of course, Newton and, of course, even Einstein did participate in a certain increase of knowledge. But Einstein, in particular, just took information from others and kind of explained it himself. That's what relativity is all about. He explained something that someone else had already stated. So I'm not sure how many years before him, but it was quite a few. Could have been even 100. Wrote 4 pages and oh, it's so profound. We could never figure this out. And if you look at the original paperwork, it seems to be sloppy. The math is wrong. Everything about it is incorrect. But apparently this is the physics is at such a low level of development that they grasp on to the most ridiculous. Particularly then in the 1920s, which is 100 years ago, and there's been not a single breakthrough in physics. If you can call that a breakthrough. I don't think that is a breakthrough. It's been hundreds of years, and we have no breakthrough. I mean, Newton did a lot of good work, who was an alchemist who understood things a lot better, and certainly was a fantastic, interesting mind. And, you know, they like to take from him what the buffoonish common physicists of this time like to understand. So they take stuff from him, and they disregard all the great work he did in alchemy, otherwise known as subtle energies, people. So it is interesting. So I don't want to criticize Newton that much. But the bottom line is that for everybody to understand this battle, instead of me inventing a whole bunch of words like scientists do, we call it a stick-on, because it sticks on the other things. And this one here, and now that's a real term, is a glue-on. on, because it kind of glues on to the other. Oh, we just can't get any higher thoughts here. Why bother to think about the implications of this? That could be a real word. But they do all sorts of things. They name everything after themselves, their pets, what they passed in the morning. All this stuff they tend to want to bring in. So this is what your scientists are all about, as well as selling themselves like whores to produce weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein didn't have any of that, but your scientists do. So to understand all this, we have to understand the physics of everything. And I'm putting together a complete course on this with all detail. This is kind of just an introduction. This stuff should be happening pretty rapidly. There's going to be a new course on radionics as well. All this has to be out there. And if you don't have our old course that gives you a great foundation, what are you waiting for? It's a little dated, but I will be updating it soon, and so you'll be able to get everything together at a slight price increase, but not much. So subtle energy physics is, and you got to remember the course is about building empowerment image machines. So the actual tools you get with that are tools that empower you. You can build your own radionic machine as these boxes that they come in. Quite a stroke of genius, a lot of fun, and produces excellent results. So I'm going to have more and more of these coming out very soon. But subtle energy physics, and it has been solved. Now, first of all, we have to understand that all of the things that science, failure science of today, and failure science is what we have today, is all invalid. Now, people scoff, oh, what are you talking about? We got computers and bridges and this is engineering, people. This is not science. So an engineer has to make something that kind of works. I don't know how well anything really works. A huge amount of the products we make don't work, but that may be a manufacturing problem. I don't know. But engineers make things that work. You can't build a road that sinks in. Well, this has happened occasionally, but you can't build a skyscraper that falls over. So all of these things you can't do. So this is different. So let's not get into the techie that we figured out how to makey things. So this is very interesting and very advanced. It really happened in the last 20 or 30 years. I mean, mankind was riding horses to the 1930s. What's interesting is that in World War II, most of the armies, including people thinking that the Germans were so mechanized, they weren't. Apparently only about 20% of the German army was even mechanized. They used horses and horses and horses, which were used by almost everybody. This is one of those things out of history you don't see, because you don't want to put horses in a World War II film. People will kind of say, what? Well, that's what it was, people. So the whole idea is that we haven't had technology for very long. So everything's happened maybe in the last 50, 60 years, where we went from base technologies in terms of making stuff and understanding how to do it into high-tech stuff that we mass market and mass build with slave labor. Thank you, Chan and Sheen. You're handcuffed to your table. You make a computer always shoot you in the head and take your organs. Show them to the white man. So the whole idea is that's, unfortunately, where we're at. We live off the slavery of others. And I do like to diverse, because people should wake up. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of... So it's all happened very recently. What is not happening is the understanding of the higher sciences, the next level. Yes, we've got out of the dinosaur age, we got out of the stone age, and we're kind of getting out of the physical metal age, which is makey everything. So now we have to transfer new types of energy to new levels of manifestation and manipulation of matter. And of course, that's what, of course, psions and occultons, and of course the whole subtle energy physics is about. And subtle energy physics manifests what is called crudely, and I'm not going to try and change that word either, radionics. I prefer words like psychotronics. Even psionics, I think, explains things better, but psionics is a cartoon term. It's in fiction, so people have discredited that. But psychic electric is interesting, but it's a misnomer. Radionics, which was coined in modern times by Ruth Drown, who thought this was a radio-type process that was being produced, even though radionics was used way before her, with the invention of radios, and they added onyx onto it as well. So there is no direct invention of this. Radionics became a term used by Ruth Drown to describe radionic type machines, which vary dramatically, by the way. So we need to understand there's this whole new energy. This new energy, which involves the use of occultons and psions, which are the essence of all matter. Where is the universe made of? What is it out there? It's made of occultons and psions. I mean, this is a fact, and it can be proven through my research. And if I had millions of dollars, I would have lots of researchers to explain it to you. I would have meters and all the things to show you, and we'd have. But I'm not sure the world is ready for such a potent technology. So the whole idea is you basically manipulate the essence of matter of the universe. What creates everything? Well, a lot of people say God does. This is, of course, a childish way of looking at things. But there is a creator energy. So there's an energy out there that creates everything. Well, where did everything come from? Well, it came from the creator energy. To think that there's some God making stuff, well, if that's the case, he's doing a piss poor job of it and allowing the lowest scummy life to control everything. Well, that isn't the case. This is a creator energy, and it kind of makes everything good, bad, and indifferent, because in billions of years it may turn into something else. So that gaseous ball that's in space right now that we have a picture of from the Hubble telescope, that was Mr. Hubble. As far as I understand, the telescope was not invented by him. Was it Galileo or some Italian guy who was eating the pizza and said, hey, looky to here, you see better? So the whole idea is that that's the reality. But no, we got to name it off one of our buddies, who, from I understand, his story is a little bit goofy, old Hubble. But the point is that we have seen these again. Now, in a billion years, which to the universe is nothing, to you, it's not even fathomable. Because human beings on Earth live a pathetic lifespan. Isn't really good for doing anything. It's amazing anybody can do anything in the pathetic short time that we have to do it in. So, with that covered, these energies mix together, and the atmosphere around it creates and affects the occultons, meaning what's in space. That gaseous ball needs what? Maybe it needs another gas, so that it condenses down. Now, the goal of occultons ultimately is to create some sort of physical mass. That could take millions and maybe even billions of years. But when those things do happen, the occultons start making, because they're receiving psions of a particular type, to build more and more refined energies. Humans, animals, trees, water, oxygen. And this is where it all comes from. And it's not really complicated because, science is trying to tell this anyway. Of course, science has stolen everything from a Newton again, who basically was an occult scientist. He was basically a new ager coming up with a whole bunch of new things, and came from a bizarre spiritual background and wrote a whole bunch of books on Christianity and who he worked for. He was also another weird dude in all sorts of areas. But the point is that this guy was an occultist or an occult scientist. And of course, everything that we have now still goes back to the ancient Greeks. Because last time I checked, the ancient Greeks were not really Christians. And their philosophies came from God knows whom, and a lot of it came from Egypt, who got most of that from Atlantis. But Greek occupied Egypt for, I'm still trying to get the exact number there, but it's hundreds of years that they occupied. They stole everything they could, got all the edges, and they mixed it with their own brilliance that apparently the Greeks and Romans had to carry that to the West to a much higher form. This was also then taken by the Muslims, who used the Greek technologies to build some of their schools and other things. Well, this is where it came from. Know your history. So basically, what are we talking about? We're talking about these coming from the ancient mystery schools that everything is based on today. Now, there's a little bit difference in the other things, and of course, science admits that most everything is empty. So there's whatever, but that whatever is surrounded by emptiness. Really, is that empty? I don't know if anything is really empty. They are looking for the perfect vacuum. They still have never found that, but they haven't looked in scientists' heads. I'm sure there would be many perfect vacuums found there. But the whole idea is that this is the reality of it. But it's not emptiness, it's energy. It's occultons, you morons. It's not hard to figure out, nor is it a stretch, because something has to come from somewhere. Now, the bottom line, things aren't made from stuff. Everything's made from a rock. Well, this isn't true. There has to be some energy there. Now, rocks turned into soil because they had energy to do it. The energy was called fungus. I don't know how many people know this, and I wasn't too sure of it until I read it recently, but fungus generated from informational energetic fields to be a life form that ate at the rocks. The rocks turned to dirt. The dirt turned to soil, and the rest is history. Right, bugs? Now you have carrots. So the whole idea is that this is how everything works out there. So it has to be something energetic in nature. But the bottom line is that your common physicists think everything comes from physical matter and goes into energy. They have it all backwards. But are we surprised? No. The only thing they're good at is cashing their checks. So we all need to understand that, as this is what subtle energy physics is all about. I'm going to outline this in a book, write it all down. We're going to make little booklets that are easy to read, absorb, and good thing is to be able to read something over and over again so you can absorb it. The other thing is that you'll read it today, and maybe a year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now, you'll read it again and get a lot more out of it, or maybe it'll just be a month from now. So by rereading things that are not big books, it's hard to read a portion of a book again. I don't know. People state that and they mark their books up. And you go back here, where's the highlights? Is it bookmarked? I've had books that had 70 bookmarks in it. Okay. You look at it and say, oh God, bookmarks of what? Am I going to have to look through 70 bookmarks? So the whole idea is writing booklets that you can read and reread easily is the key to learning important, potent information. So this will be coming out as well as lectures, which I'll break all this down in depth so you fully understand it on these lectures as well, which we'll have available as MP3s and also put on actual physical, quote, CDs, which are still a valid technology the way I use it, because you're going to have very important energy transfer and empowerment sigils on these CDs that you can then place your drinks on, your pictures on, everything to kind of make you get it so you can ascend better and understand what's happening. And this is a slow process, but it's a potent one. So, that's how it works. It's all subtle energy physics coming your way fast and furious. I can't wait to get this information out to people. This ties into, because this directly relates to how radionics work. Well, how does radionic work? Well, it works from these energies. Now, these energies are not electromagnetic in nature. These are higher energies. The universe is not filled with electromagnetism. Now, you may be a chemical battery that puts out some of this, and that's how your brain works on a certain level, is through this chemical battery that is shooting these electrical signals around. And if they turn off, guess what? You turn off like a light switch. That's what a seizure is, and it's frightening if you're around it. I've been around it with people in my family who've had these things, and it's just weird. And nobody knows it, and it's like a light switch. So, the point is that you may be like that at a certain level, but that is a crude battery level. That's the actual chemical battery that you are made of that powers this kind of physical structure, which seems to be critical to your survival. Pretty hard to put consciousness into the air. So, people think this happens, but ultimately you have to materialize as some sort of entity, even if it's an energetic entity that has information in it. So the whole idea is there's a lot beyond this reality that we see as physical and understand. Until we grasp this as a people, as a science, we will never get anywhere as we are not now. Science, engineering, and everything that goes with it has ran into a horrible dead end. Yes, we have a lot of techniques. Some of these manifest themselves just by using it. So if you manufacture something, you just through serendipity, or what you could call by accident, you're going to figure out better ways of doing things. That's not figuring out how to not do it at all. Theoretically, subtle energy physics could assemble something out of thin air by condensing the energy into physical form and then creating something with it, similar to what you would call the replicator type technology we see in science fiction. And of course, if you can assemble something, you can pull it apart, which would have a great effect in getting rid of toxic waste and other things. So this whole area of study is completely and totally mind-blowing, that even if a tenth of it is taken and developed further, which is what I'm doing right now, you're going to have the most awesome technology ever created. Because you're going to use energy to create or dissipate matter. And of course, that's how it's always worked. Everything starts from energy and it becomes physical. That's how the world is. But this is something that is under contention. But what is it under contention? And they're not doing anything, and they're allowing the people of this planet, all of its species and the planet itself, to be destroyed with their junk technology for momentary profits. But that's all part of the mixture here. It's a part of the fact of why good organizations and good people have struggle, while bad organizations seem to have endless funding. After all, we have the experts in the rocketry program making rockets. The book dealer, the mad car maker. I designed the website. I have millions now. And of course, let's not forget the guy who makes records, Mr. Virgin. Can you think of any three better people you'd want in your rocket program? The only thing worse than that was putting a Nazi ahead of it, but that's the way it goes. Now we can't even get a cupcake off the ground. And of course, the space station, apparently only people who get in space are the Russians, who we want to poo on, who try and protect themselves. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of nonsense that goes on out there. So the world is inside out, upside down, wrong is right, good is bad, all the things that are going on. And of course, you don't think that this kind of stuff will be understood or embraced by these scientists who make their living in lies. And they have to lie to get their paycheck. And then they make sure their lies, they convince themselves their lies are some sort of bizarre truth that comes from the pit of hell, because that's where it comes from. And they buy into it and then try and act like they know something by babbling about science that is totally unprovable, that's only theoretical. Yet subtle energy physics isn't theoretical. You can see the manifestations of it on many levels. You can see how it affects energy fields, how it actually goes out and changes the way everything is structured, from well-being to energetic fields to increased success, etc. There's nothing it can't get into. Now, what we have to understand, and where people get confused here, is they somehow think this is a magic lamp. Well, it isn't. Magic lamp technology can't exist. If everybody had a magic lamp, we'd be living in a chaotic hell. And I believe that there is some sort of energetic reality that stops us from achieving that level. Because if everybody was like that, was manifesting left and right, we would be in such a chaotic reality that it wouldn't, it would just be a bad comic book. So you can't do that, but you certainly can empower your life. You can empower your well-being. You can empower everything that you are aware of in this world, from higher levels of understanding, higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of learning, higher levels of health. All this can be generated to increase your lifespan, to keep you well and further your life and take care of the problems that we all have. The misery and the the lack of positive manifestations is destroying this world, and we need to stop it now. Plain and simple. And it can be stopped, and this technology is very valid. So we are working on doing all of that stuff, and we are able to develop these known and already successful technologies that in themselves seem ridiculous until you understand the hardcore science of it and how it works. When you know that, It just makes perfect sense. So watch for that new course coming. It's going to be exciting. We're looking forward to it. And finally getting the information out there, at least in a brief form with audios first, and then followed up with writing to really get this information out there, because that's the process people learn by. People don't take audios like this very seriously. But if it's written, if it's understood, and then people start to use it and improve their life, that's the way it is. It's all there. It's there for the taking. You just have to make sure that you thumb your nose at the do-nothing, incompetent, overpaid scientists and pundits that want to tell you different. Until next time.